So for years, I have been making videos about story, specifically in Call of Duty. And one thing that I've wanted to do for a very long time is to branch out and make other story videos for other video games. And when I started out doing these story videos for Call of Duty, it was during Call of Duty Black Ops 4, which was a hero shooter. A shooter that essentially had a bunch of different specialist characters, all with branching and their own backstories. So I thought it was a perfect opportunity with the success of Marvel Rivals to do a very similar thing. Now, what's cool about Marvel Rivals is this game has so much backstory. Each individual hero has their own story that's actually quite different than their story in, say, the Marvel Cinematic Universe or something along those lines. But if I was to put every single character's backstory in this video, it would be like over 2 hours long. So what I did is break down the most important parts that will tell you kind of the origin story of the Marvel Rivals story and how it works, so you guys can know what the story is going into the game. And of course, if you would like to see more videos like this, maybe diving into individual characters in Marvel Rivals, or even just diving into the story of other video games, you can show me by hitting that like button. But without further ado, this is the full backstory, the origin story, if you will, of Marvel Rivals. So the story of Marvel Rivals begins with a character by the name of Doctor Doom, a character who was traditionally fighting against the Fantastic Four, but in Marvel Rivals is kind of fighting against everyone. Now in Rivals, Doctor Doom is experimenting with the laws of time, magic, and science when he all of a sudden runs into another Doctor Doom. But this version of Doctor Doom is from 2099. When this happens, it causes a catastrophic event known as time stream entanglement, where multiple timelines are suddenly fused together. This causes many different universes to come not in as a multiverse, but what they are calling the Chronoverse. So with this thing called the Chronoverse, we see different versions of some of the most iconic heroes from Marvel all forced into one timeline. So both heroes and villains in this timeline fight for their lives in a never-ending battle to kind of try to stop Doctor Doom. But that's why we see villains teaming up with heroes and vice versa. Now, so far in the Chronoverse, there's essentially 4 different universes. We have the present day universe, we have the 2099 techno dystopia universe, we have the mosaic timeline, which for that one, think of the past, and we have the final timeline, the collapsing timeline. This is the one where essentially everyone dies. Now, it's completely possible that there are going to be more of these kind of universes or chronoverses that are kind of added into this timeline, but as of right now, this seems to be what we have. So because of this, it's incredibly hard to narrow down what is going on at a given time. So for this video, what I'm going to tell you is what each hero is doing at set times to set up what their character is and where they are coming from. In other words, the where and when, starting with before the time collapse. So before the time collapsed, Doctor Doom barged into the Sanctum Sanctorum, which is kind of where Doctor Strange is. So he tells Doctor Strange that he thinks the secret to controlling time is vampire magic. Then he demands Doctor Strange to hand over something known as the Darkhold, which is essentially a book for magic, and specifically dark magic, that vampires would use, so he can do vampire research. Doctor Strange basically says no, and then they get into a big magic fight, which Doctor Strange wins. And as Doctor Doom retreats, Doctor Strange tosses the Darkhold into something known as the Astral Plane to keep it safe. So after Doom loses to Doctor Strange, he then barges into Khonshu's divine space. Now, if you don't know who Khonshu is, essentially it's an old god who controls the moon. Now, what he does is tell Khonshu to stop the moon over top of New York City so that vampires would come out and he can conduct his vampire research, therefore learning his time entanglement and all of that stuff. However, he refuses and Doom is banished from the realm. So Khonshu sends Moon Knight to New York City to prepare himself for an imminent vampire threat because he kind of knows what Doctor Doom is up to. Now, Khonshu at this point goes into the astral plane to find the Darkhold for himself. Now, it's at this point where Doctor Doom finds future Doctor Doom and the time stream entanglement completely happens, and a new element is found called Chronovium, which actually super enhances certain characters. For example, Dracula, super enhanced from Chronovium, moves into the Sanctum Sanctorum, and when he does, he casts a powerful blood ritual, locking the moon over New York City, casting it into eternal eternal night. Now for the rest of this, I'm going to show you things happening at certain times in certain places, starting out in present day in the Empire of Eternal Night, aka permanent nighttime New York. So first off, we have Mr. Fantastic, a smart guy, and Iron Man, a smart guy, who are working on a device together called the Time Stream Reintegration Device, or the TRD for short, which can fix the entanglement that just happens. However, they are lacking the proper amount of chronovium to actually power it. So while this is going on, Cloak and Dagger and Moon Knight are on the streets. They're fighting vampires. They're coming at them at no end because keep in mind, we are in Eternal Night. Now, it's at this time they learn that Honshu got a hold of the Darkhold and wants to use the Montesi formula to kill all the vampires. Mr. Fantastic and Cloak are against it, but Dagger and Iron Man have begun to seriously consider it. So in a different part of New York, we have Spider-Man, who is contacted by Spider-Zero through a portal, and they ask for Spider-Man to come and help protect the Web of Life and Destiny. Now, if you don't know what that is, essentially it's something that is used to travel through realities, but Spider-Man refuses and decides to stay and fight for New York. It's at this time he meets up with the Human Torch as well as Blade and gets into a battle in Central Park with Dracula, but Dracula wins and flies off with Blade. Why he takes Blade, we don't know at this point. Now, at some point after this, Dracula pulls Ratatoskr, which is from Asgard. Now, if you don't know what that is essentially a god that looks like a squirrel that has a pointy horn similar to a unicorn. Now, why is this important? Because that horn holds the ability to actually kill Dracula. Why? I don't know, but Squirrel Girl tries to defend Ratatoskr. However, Dracula ends up beating her and abducting Ratatoskr. Now, you may be wondering where the hell is Doctor Strange. As it turns out, he is in his astral form in the mirror dimension, and he is reaching out to several different Sorcerer Supremes, but ends up getting in contact with Wanda in an alternate reality, who eventually responds. Now, Wanda at this point heads to Limbo and enlists Magic's aid, and together with Wolverine, they head to a place known as Caraco. Now, keep in mind, they are seemingly doing this to help out Doctor Strange. Now, this time stream entanglement also caused two living islands, Caraco and Araco, to merge together and get thrown into the 2099 timeline. So at this point, the alternate reality version of Wanda we are looking at is in 2099 on Caraco. So this is where we get a little bit more background on Caraco. You see, led mostly by heroic Magneto, Wanda uses her chaos magic to enhance Cerebro, allowing Magneto to find mutants across the multiverse and gather them to him with a single message: to me, my X-Men. And some of the many mutants that end up reaching out include Namor, Psylocke, and a powerful space entity determined to burn out all darkness, which I think is referring to Galactus, but I'm not 100% sure with that one. Now, it is at this time where Mantis, Psylocke, and Jeff get teleported to the Collector's Museum and put on display. After weeks in captivity, Mantis ends up being put in a cage to fight against another Mantis variant, but they sacrifice themselves so she can actually escape. She then breaks out Psylocke and Jeff, and then they escape on a stolen ship. This is when Psylocke receives the message from Magneto. Now, while we're in the year 2099, let's move over to Tokyo. So in Tokyo, Black Widow infiltrates somewhere known as Alchemax and discovers a frozen Captain America who has been there since around World War II. They end up escaping together and taking down public eye security forces sent to go stop them, and become separated in an explosion. Now, at this time, Captain America is saved by Wolverine, who brings him to Wakanda. Don't worry, we'll come back to Wakanda. Well, Black Widow leaves to track down the Punisher, who is in Tokyo, who's off busy murdering gang members, because, well, that's what the Punisher does. He hates organized crime. So it's also in Tokyo in the year 2099 where we once again see Spider-Zero. They are protecting the Web of Life and Destiny alongside Penny Parker and Master Weaver. Now, they don't know how to fix the Web of Life and Destiny, so they have different ideas. So at this time, that is when Spider-Zero sends messages throughout time to recruit other Spider people to her side and help defend the Web. Who is attacking the Web, web, you may be asking? Dr. Doom 2099 version is using his Doom bots to attack the web. So that's it for Tokyo. Now, remember how I mentioned Black Panther? Let's move to that because this is also happening in 2099. So for this, we have to go to Wakanda, but not the Wakanda you're thinking of. You see, in 2099, somehow Wakanda has expanded to the intergalactic empire of Wakanda. So the Black Panther, along with his sister Shuri, are in outer space in the intergalactic empire of Wakanda. Now, because of the time stream entanglement, the Chronovium has now made a new element known as Chronovium, which manifests itself inside something known as the Vibranium Star, which is essentially at the heart of the intergalactic empire. Now, what Shuri wants to do is to use the new element to power Mr. Fantastic and Iron Man's TRD, or time stream reintegration device that we talked about earlier. But T'Challa, aka the Black Panther, is against it. Now, concurrently in Wakanda, to fight the two versions of Dr. Doom, T'Challa has put together heroes in Wakanda, which include Captain America, as we've talked about, and Hawkeye and the Winter Soldier, who he has gone and retrieved from Hell's Haven Hydra base. Now, one of the reasons why T'Challa is against using the Chronovium or Vibranium Star to use the TRD is because right now his Panther Goddess Bass has been corrupted by a dark presence in a place known as Clintar. So to get to the bottom of this, Black Panther's sister Shuri sends the Guardians of Galaxy to Clintar to figure out what is corrupting Bast. Now, this planet known as Clintar is essentially a symbiote around a dead corpse of a celestial. So they land there and they immediately start fighting hordes of symbiotes. Now, it's at this exact same time that Adam Warlock and Venom are both drawn to the planet Clintar as well. Now, when they get there, they both quickly realize that there is someone there by the name of Knoll. And essentially what they want to do is destroy the entire planet with something known as the all-black Necro Sword. So as of right now, they're looking for that. For the next part, we have to head over to Asgard. So after the timeline entanglement, Loki realizes that the Chronovium-infused sap of Yggdrasil allowed him to see the future. And in all versions of the future, Asgard lies ruined, except for in one, where he becomes king. As a result, he schemes with Hela to cast Odin asleep and exile Sor so he may rule the throne for himself. Hela agrees, but with only one caveat. She needs to learn and master the power of Chronovium for herself. So at this point, Thor is trapped in Asgard's Tower of Solitude just long enough for Loki to complete his takeover of Asgard. Now, when he finally escapes, he is confronted by Hela, who has managed to infuse her army of dead with Chronovium. Hela's army overwhelms Thor and she banishes him from Asgard by throwing him through a portal to an alternate timeline. The timeline that he gets sent to, he just so happens to crash land in a desert. The same desert that the Hulk, or Bruce Banner, is currently at. Now, he made something called the Gamma Belt to help him control turning into the Hulk. Now, when Thor crash lands, he ends up getting into a battle with the Monster Hulk, but once Thor kind of breaks the Gamma Belt, he then turns back to Banner, and then the two ponder what to do next. Now, let's be clear, this doesn't cover every single character within Marvel Rivals, but it covers a good majority of them, and it kind of sets up the story moving forward so we know exactly what's going on. It's essentially all the heroes and all of the villains all together against the two versions of Dr. Doom and, of course, Dracula. This also sets up what these characters are doing at these certain times and which version of the Chronoverse they're actually in, what year they're in, where they are, what is going on, and what is going to happen moving forward. Essentially, this is the whole backstory of whatever happens next in Marvel Rivals. And if you want to see more, if you want to see individual character stories, if you want to see more videos like this on the channel, the best way to show me is by hitting that like button. And if you guys enjoy this kind of thing, we can definitely do more for this game or other games or anything else. So let me know, show me by hitting that like button, and until next time, peace.